thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here today. We really appreciate it. And Robert, thank you for last minute stand-in.
Well, I'm replacing Eric Denlinger, so that's a tough deal.
It's a tough deal. Eric would miss today. The first session that Dave just moderated was all about yes. This is all mainly about acquisitions. And interestingly enough, these two guys on the left here aren't auto guys. I would characterize you, and I don't know you guys, but as sort of hiring guns. And in my life, 25 years in the industry, I've always found this very interesting, that when you get private equity investing in companies, sometimes they bring in seasoned operators, like these two guys on the left. So we're going to dive a little bit into that today, and that dynamic, and why a private equity firm would bring you guys in after an acquisition, as an example. And then I would also ask you to start thinking about, I'm foreshadowing here a little bit, but start thinking about also your observations being relatively new to auto, and the interesting dynamic, because auto is a very interesting space. Many of us in this room, all we've ever done is auto, but for those folks that have a lot of experience, such as yourselves, operating businesses outside of auto, coming into auto, you must have some unique observations. So before I get there, let's start with Robert. So Robert, how many years have you been overseeing acquisitions?
I came to my first NADA in 1999 and found KeyTrack. So that was my first acquisition, so that was a lot of years ago.
And then how many acquisitions have you done?
Approaching 100.
And approximately how much capital have you spent on 100 acquisitions?
About $5.5 billion.
$5.5 billion. So anybody in this room responsible for either more acquisitions and or deploying more capital enable that can hit? We have the right guy on stage. We have the right guy on stage. Well, thanks for being here today. So what's the kinkiest thing? What's the kinkiest, not your personal life? 100 acquisitions.
Please don't ask them the same question.
100 acquisitions. What's the weirdest, wonkiest, don't name names, what's the weirdest thing that you've seen in 100 acquisitions from $5 billion?
There's...
You gotta have some really big stories.
Yeah, I do, and there's some we certainly can't talk about unless we're having a beer, but there's been some interesting ones. One is, I think there's been about 5 of them who have had, who started businesses with their spouses, and then they split, and then the spouse ends up still staying there and being the best friend of the new wife. So it's a really strange deal. It's a dynamic that's really unique.
Yeah.
But we've seen a little bit of everything in this market. I mean, we love you can't get automotive out of your blood once you're in it, and so. But it is a unique group, and it's a great group.
Of the 100, are there any that you're most proud of that you can name?
I would start off with KeyTrack was certainly one of the. I mean, it's a major player today. Many years later, CoinData, DocuPad, I think is a game changer in the industry. So we're really proud of that. Reverse Risk. We just completed one. I stayed on. I left in January of last year. Reynolds, but stayed on to help them close the TSD acquisition, which was a really nice one. So. Yeah, there's quite a few to be proud of.
That's great. Hey, given you've got the mic, there are a bunch of entrepreneurs that you heard earlier, very, very early stage entrepreneurs here. Any words of wisdom for entrepreneurs here? Thinking about, 5-10 years from now, they're going to have a sale?
I think people, early stage companies are doing a much better job these days of preparing themselves for sale. And I think it's guys like you, Steve and Chase and others that come in and really help you prepare for sale. So it's going into it with the idea that someday you're going to want to get rid of the company. And so, making sure that you're, surrounding yourself and setting yourself up on a professional basis. And then start those conversations early. Get to know people. I think these events that have started to occur over the last 5 years are tremendous for that. And I love the fact that you went around the room and let everybody introduce themselves, because I think this is the type of environment where you're gonna make those connections. And so you guys are gonna be. I mean, I have found that I don't have a stomach for the early stage. I just don't. It's not in my DNA. Working for Reynolds for many years and just understanding, more mature companies and things. So I love the fact that you guys are going to go in there and really help the company professionalize and really prepare it for a chance when you guys can hopefully sell a company to me. So let's talk.
Yeah. We've got Jared Market. So last thing before I move over to Ben. So tell us a little bit about 1876. So this is that company that you founded. You had a great career, obviously a great career at Reynolds, but you decided that to go off now with this team over here, start your new firm. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are trying to accomplish and your targets, et cetera.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to give a shout out to Casey, who calls herself Robert New Improved 2.0 version. So Casey's heading up Reynolds acquisitions and strategy. It's something that we wanted to do for a long time. So, and Reynolds is an anchor investor in our fund. I think I've said that before from stage, but we felt like we had some things that we wanted to do. When you've done it this long, you want to make some of the decisions yourself, and so it's been fun to do that. 1876 is the year Texas A&M was founded. And so most of us are Aggies, and we've got a team of 8, and 6 of us are from Texas A&M. And sorry, Chase. Yeah, you should have studied harder in school. Okay?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he went to that other school in Austin. So, we really proud of what we've been doing. So we kicked off in January of last year. We deployed almost $80 million our first year, and I threw out the gauntlet for goals this year, and we're looking for at least 3 more platform companies this year and a bolt-on for every platform. And so, we're excited. We're loving it.
What's the investment thesis? Generally?
So, lower middle market, vertical software, data analytics. So, our first one was MadSign, that's in this space. We closed on July 31st of last year. And then I went out and got, to your point about, getting someone who knows the industry, I went out and got Rudy Nieto, and Rudy's now the CEO of that company, and you should talk to Rudy about that. And then the second one is outside of automotive, though. It's one we closed in December. Nice acquisition in data analytics, and we're excited about that one.
Very cool. Well, thanks for being up there last minute. I know you got to stop.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Good work. Good. Ben, how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you doing?
Are you glad to be here?
6 flights. Yeah.
6 flights?
6 different cancellations. Yeah, finally got
Oh,
it.
wow.
Not as bad as this guy who ended up flying to Jackson, Mississippi, and drove. That's insane, but yeah.
So Robert's on his 26th.
I'm on my second.
Second.
Yeah.
Second NAD. Second NAD.
Good to see you. It feels good.
Right. And so what are you thinking this?
It's incredible.
Why
Like,
that?
up listening last year, I know everyone calls it the Super Bowl, but I always thought running a lot of companies that trade shows for like this $1 never got the money out of it. Spent $250,000 that never got anything out of it. Last year, I would be looking at my team when I go, we're spending that much money at a conference. I'm like, it's a $1 thing. It's not to be real. The amount of business we wrote on the floor, the amount of engagement, the amount of people you got to meet with, game changer. I've never, it's maybe from this anti-boondoggle conference, they're like, you got to be at every one of those. And it's not just this. Motivate, same thing. You get to do business at Brian Hash's events. The list goes on and on. I've never been in an industry where at the conference, people want to engage, and they want. It doesn't matter if it's an auto dealer that you want to work with. They're there. If it's a partner, the ecosystem is just so amazing. Open for collaboration, which is really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Are you offended that I would characterize you as a hiring gun?
I mean, I don't like it.
All right, cool.
No.
So let me ask you this. So when you were a kid, you were a teenager, what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I didn't know I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to build something, and I did. So I started out as like Joe and all of them that were up here, right? Had an idea, built it myself, then did the A round, the B round, the VC round, and then you move up to the PE side of it. And then eventually you find what is your sweet spot of the business. Mine is like finding really good talent, empowering, creating innovation, and never ever forgetting that it's all about the customers, and you're important. It's because someone taught me a long time ago, it's like, you used to think it's all about winning customers. It's also about building the greatest team, because if you treat your team really well and you empower your team, you never have to worry about your customers, because they're going to die for your customers. And that's how you want to build a company. Because everyone thinks like raising money, get all this money, great, I can go hire 500 salespeople, and next thing you know, you have 5,000 dealerships. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't matter how good your technology is. You don't wake up the next morning and be able to grow. You need to build an organization from ground up. And I think a lot of organizations forget it's the people behind it. And you need them to be all marching up the same hill together. And our job is to motivate and get them excited about it and find resources and opportunities for them.
Very cool. So two-part question. So help us in the audience understand a little bit more how private equity firms think in terms of like the process they go through and how do they identify the company, what do they look for? And then the second part is then dovetail into, when and how do they bring in guys like you as the hired gun to run the company?
All right, but I think the something first is the magic word is EBITDA. Which, if you went to school as an accountant, there's something that never taught you, right? This is something like before I started working with private equity, it's something I never even thought of, right? So build a company that's actually, you can grow revenue and you can have EBITDA, and there's this beautiful magic word called like a rule of 40. If you could have 20 points of EBITDA and 20 points of growth, you're a pretty special company.
Not a lot of people will be familiar with that term.
Right.
Take a moment to define rule of 40.
The rule of 40 is, so you got to take your EBITDA, basically think of your profit, right? And then take your revenue growth. So it used to be like during COVID, you saw lots of companies go public with like 40, 50, 60% revenue growth, but they were losing a ton of money, and yet their stock did really good. And then it all came back to earth because they're like, if you grow and you don't make money, and then is this really a good company, or should it be owned by someone else? And they can make it profitable. So like the perfect thing in the world with private equity is if you want to buy a company. So the last company I did this with was an Apollo company, and Apollo, one of the largest private equity firms in the world, used to have this magic word. If you find a company that has 20 points of EBITDA and double-digit growth, you can go out and look at them to acquire, because then you know that they built a company that's profitable. They built a company that's still growing, right? Because what also happens to a lot of organizations is you can get really profitable, but you're not growing anymore. And does that make you really valuable going forward? So private equity firms, if I'm looking at a company with my hat, we're owned by Sarek, so 50% of my job is, am I doing right for the shareholders, the investors, and for the company? And 50% of our job is, am I doing the right thing for my company and the employees? So you have to skirt both sides of it. But the number one thing you look for is like, are we going to buy a company because they have great technology, and then it's this technology tuck-in, and I don't really care if they're profitable or not profitable, I want that. Or do they have a lot of customers and they can't make it profitable? Can we come in and synergize the company and grow the company that way? Or the holy grail is, can we find a company that has 40 points of, a rule of 40 or 50 points, right? Can you have 25 points of revenue growth and 25 points of EBITDA, or 30 points of EBITDA and 20 points of revenue growth, or any combination? Then you know that the bones of that company are really good. But also you can look at a company, if they don't have it, what do they need? So when we're analyzing a company, can you come in and make changes? These subtle changes. Because not everything, the bigger a company comes is, then you can look at it and go, man, we could just buy this company and synergize. Like, and synergize means like, I could let go of 30% of the staff and automatically we're 30% more profitable. But if you're in the middle market, that's not really what you're doing. What you're looking at, is this going to actually let us reach more, grow more, do more for our customers? And look, our acquisition, we bought Total CX in May, Jack's company, and they were the third place call tracking company. It was us and Car Wars, but they had a phone system. And we look at our 5,000 plus customers and we were like, what do our 5,000 plus customers all use? They all use telephone or call tracking. What a perfect company to acquire. But then we had to look into it. Are they profitable? Will their people mesh with us? Yep. And don't assume that just because you buy a company, you're able to mesh the company. It's a culture, right? And don't assume that it's really easy to cross-sell the brand and the product. Everyone does that. It's great on a spreadsheet. Yeah. You go, you know what? If we just sell 20% of our customers this, we're going to make this much money. Never worked that bad. It's not as easy. Might not be the same buyer in the dealership. Might not be the same person. So there's a lot you have to look at outside of just, hey, do I like the company? Do I like the people?
Cool. Thank you, Aaron, corporate media, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
How many 88?
Well, I think this is my third NADA with this company. My previous company, we sold into a ton of different verticals. Automotive was one. We did digital signage, service lane signage into dealerships as well as music. So, but mostly we were centered around healthcare and automotive aftermarket. So I partnered with a lot with tire manufacturers to help improve the retail experience at their franchises or market groups.
Cool. Who thinks they've been here at NADA the most number of times? We got Robert at 99. Anybody beat Robert? Mark, how many? 40. 40. Anybody get 40? How many? 40 and 40. Two and then Mark. There you go. Buy these guys a drink.
This is the first time that we are actually exhibiting.
First time you did it?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
So my background's a little different than Ben's. I did found a company, which I then sold 3 times to private equity. And each time I partnered with the private equity.
How does that work? Explain that to you.
Well,
You've sold the same company 3 times?
Yes.
Okay, let's
So-
hear the story.
The same company?
Same company. Same company 3
Even for the
times.
hired gun, you said. Yeah.
So I started the business literally by selling my apartment and founding the company. And coming up, and my business partner and I, he had a small company. We bought another small company, both together with the funds from me and a friend. And as we grew, we kept taking on different levels of capital. It got to the point where my business partner was looking to retire. I sold it to a group called Riverside, based in New York. I sold, at that point, I became a minority shareholder. They kept me on as CEO. 3 years later, they exited again. And as being part of the sales process, they found another private equity company that made me money, made them money. I took a smaller piece of the business with them.
But you stayed on?
I stayed on. I transitioned to a different role as a chief operating officer, and I ran actually all the acquisition integration for the business. We acquired close to 40 different companies during the time that, with all the different equity partners that we had. And then finally, I indicated that this is going to be my last time. I wanted to do something different. And then when we sold it again to the Jordan Company, we had grown it I had grown it from 0 to $45+ million as EBITDA. And that's how you do it. You get, different private equity companies have goals. They have a model. When you achieve the model, they exit. They really want to be able to return capital, especially ones that are always constantly raising money. So you need to be able, the biggest advice I always give is when you're going out to raise money, tell them how they're going to make money when they exit. Because if they can't see how they're going to exit, and it can't be, no offense to Robert, but it can't be, well, we're going to sell to a strategic, which just seems to be like a lot of what people do here in the automotive space. They think they're going to be able to sell to a strategic. It doesn't happen all the time, and that's not really an exit strategy. Okay. So for us, it goes for me is being able to tell that equity buyer what we're going to do to grow the business, and we grew it organically through growth, inorganically, which is through acquisitions. So my company now, Barrett Car People, we started out essentially as a call center business. We've acquired 5 companies so far into the platform. I partnered, I found the original acquisition, and then I went and looked for investors. So slightly different than what Ben did. And we've put together a combination of both human companies that do human things, make phone calls, send emails, manage chat. Then we've combined it with different technologies. So the thesis of our company is slightly different than some of the technology investors. We believe that dealerships have a lot of technology they can buy. They can buy our technology. We're launching a suite of AI products that help humans be better. But what dealerships really have trouble doing is actually taking all that technology and implementing it. So, it's great that AI can talk to your customer kind of, asynchronously when you're not there, but AI fails often, or the sales process fails often, so the service process fails often. You need somebody at that point that can take over those conversations. So our platform allows that instantaneous communication. You can use our technology to integrate with other companies' technology, be able to say, hey, this person needs a phone call, this person needs a human touch. Hey, Mr. Dealer, you need to get somebody on the phone to get that customer in, to make sure he's happy, to make sure that his service visit was good, or he's coming in for service. We help with defection and abandonment and being able to do that kind of at the right time and being able to talk with the customer the way they want to. Customer journeys are much different these days. Sometimes they start online, sometimes they start with chat. And if you have 4 different providers providing you that information, or a computer that does that, and you're expecting your salesperson or the BDC agent who may or may not show up that day to do that, you're going to fail a lot. And so our company was designed to help you not fail.
Cool. Well, we don't have a lot of time, but maybe we'll circle back, Robert, after review, and we'll wrap with this question. So again, maybe I've already asked this question, but I just think about it. There's a lot of entrepreneurs in here, right? We've got very early stage companies, some of which we're going to hear from here, who literally just got started. They haven't even exhibited at NADA yet. We've got a bunch of folks in here that have exhibited at NADA. They've got some EBITDA, but not a lot. Robert, I mean, you're uniquely positioned up here, overseeing 100 acquisitions and $5 billion worth of money spent. Coaching or advice for entrepreneurs, even the one that did one, I think that the exit strategy is a good one. Don't just like bring some strategic CDK, Reynolds or Cox and going to stroke a check and buy you. What advice would you have? There's a bunch of entrepreneurs in the audience.
I touched on it earlier about really utilizing, professionals to prepare your company for sale one day. I think that's important. I think establishing relationships again with the room full of folks that we have here. Guys, this market 10 years ago, Steve, you were not active, doing what you were doing. Chase had gotten started, so there's a lot of options for the early stage stuff today to establish relationships. And so I would say absolutely pursue those. Also, I heard some great advice, a couple of years ago. Jake and I, my partner, were at a conference, and a guy said, this guy was in his 70s, very successful, and they said, what was the one piece of advice that you would give everybody out there, And he said, this is impossible to do, but try to never miss a meeting. So never miss a meeting opportunity. And so because you don't know what's going to happen from it. And so I've started trying to subscribe to that and really you never know what's going to come from it. And especially in these early stages, take the meeting. You're going to find some connections and establish relationships. Have patience because, you may not get something done this year, but you're establishing a relationship with someone that may come back 3 years from now.
Very cool. I think question for you.
All right, so I'm going to pile on that because I think it is the number one thing, especially someone who wasn't from the industry. When I came in, the first thing I did was call every CEO of every one of my competitors from Car Wars and met with them because how else are you going to learn about the industry and go to every single event? You become a road warrior, you have to do it. And then my other piece of advice, you use that comment about being a hired gun. There's a couple kinds of hired guns. Some people come in just to clean up, and then there's other people who come in and want to grow a company and build a company. That's how I am, but I think one of the hardest things for founder entrepreneurs to understand is when is it time for you not to be running your company anymore? Like when I built my first company, I thought I was the perfect CEO of like a $15, $20 million revenue, a couple hundred people, that's all I could do. And then we sold the company. And then the next opportunity I had was company had $300 million revenue and 1,700 employees. And I was like, you know what? I'm pretty good at this size company too. And there's a lot of people who do stuff like you close your eyes and think you want a PowerPoint deck, it appears. So you get to the row. But I think the hardest thing for any founder to be able to do is look in the mirror and go, man, I did an amazing job getting this $5 million revenue, 7 or whatever it is. I now need to bring someone else to help us get to the next. Not that I'm giving up my ownership, not that I'm giving up mine, or my ability to be part of the organization, but what's the best thing for the organization? And I think that's the hardest thing people do.
Yeah.
That's a hard question. For me, I started from the beginning always taking meetings. I think it's insanely important, especially with people who've grown their businesses before, but also investors. Everyone here gets a ton of different people reaching out, saying, hey, you'd like to maybe invest. Take all those meetings. Even when the hardest thing is for someone to say no to you, find out why they said no. What can we do better? What would make it a more attractive investment opportunity? Because I think that's, they'll take the time. Most people or investors will take the time and explain to you what you need to do. And for us, and for me in my last business, that was always very, very important. well, we weren't sure how you were going to grow. We would invest in the business, you needed this, or we don't think you future-proofed your business. So for me, it's always listening to those people and finding out those no's are just as important as those yeses.
Cool. Well, guys, I've learned there's not one person left during the session, which is a great sign, testament to all of you. So thank you. Round of applause for our panelists.